I am MPACOM President Commander Link Smith, United States Navy retired, and welcome to the MOAA Public Affairs and Communication Professional Virtual Chapter meeting on an absolute grand day uh, on 30 June 2026. Before we get going, I'd like to mention that we have a marvelous speaker who expresses very, very well what our chapter mission is, which is to provide the public affairs and communication support among MOAA affiliates across all media platforms. We've got a story to tell, and Theresa Werner is indeed going to share an amazing story. And with that, over to Captain Kevin Wensing, United States Navy retired.
Well, Link, thank you very much, and welcome everybody. Happy Independence Day week to everyone, and hope everybody enjoys a great America 250. So grateful to Theresa Werner, my good friend, for joining us today. Theresa, I first met when she was the president of the National Press Club some years ago. And Theresa, I can't remember. I think it was it Billie Jean King or Chris Everett you hosted at the National Press Club as president? Anyway, we had a wonderful event at the press club, and she's been involved with media, and now she's been involved with the Honor Flight for many, many years, and now is chair of the Honor Flight Network, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, bringing our veterans to Washington, D.C. And so this is a significant year. I think it's, 20 years since the Honor Flight started. But I'm going to turn it over to Theresa to talk about her mission, what they're doing, and what they're planning for this summer, especially with the Desert Storm 35th anniversary and the dedication of the new Desert Storm Memorial. So Theresa, welcome to our organization, and the floor is yours.
Thank you all for having me join you. My dad was a lifetime member of MOAA, so I'm very familiar with it and would always read his magazine as well. So Kevin, thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for allowing me to come here and talk about Honor Flight. My dad was in the Navy for 30 years, so like Kevin, Navy guy, grew up deprived Navy child. I only moved twice. So he joined the Navy to see the world, and I was hoping to tag along, but did a lot of duty station down in the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, here at the Pentagon, and then I was born in Rhode Island. So thrilled to be here. I am curious. I would love to know where everybody's from. Maybe in the comments, you guys could, in the chat, tell me where you all are from. To get to talk a little bit about the history of Honor Flight, where we've been, where we're going. I do find it feels like if somebody knows about Honor Flight, they know about Honor Flight. And if they don't, we had the opportunity of being at a volunteer fair last week, I think, at the NSA. And even amongst the active duty, I was kind of surprised at how many people didn't know about Honor Flight. And we were also had the opportunity to be at the Pentagon a couple of weeks ago for their volunteer fair. However, we got evacuated for an anthrax scare. So do have a nice story to tell from that. And I got the t-shirt while I was there, so that was good. But I'm really excited to talk to you about Honor Flight. Let's see, I got a couple people here in the chats. Southeast Michigan, Arizona, Tampa. Awesome. We have Honor Flights in all of those areas. So would definitely love to get you guys involved. And as Kevin said, I'm a past president of the National Press Club, and I also freelance for PBS NewsHour. So I appreciate speaking to people who understand the language of public affairs and that sort of thing. So this is very exciting. Our mission for Honor Flight, as you can see here, is to celebrate America's veterans by inviting them to share in a day of honor at our nation's memorials. We prioritize our aging heroes, ensuring they can witness the monuments in Washington, D.C. built to commemorate their service, and all of this is free of charge to the veteran. And our vision is that we are a nation where all of Americans' veterans experience the honor, gratitude, and community of support they deserve. And we're doing this through a community of guardians, hubs, volunteers to help us realize that vision. Because as with anything that's important, it really takes a village. I think this is really significant, and I've been involved with Honor Flight since 2009, and I started as a swing dancer. We were invited to DCA Airport to kind of entertain the veterans while they were waiting for their flight to go home. And this was World War II veterans, so we were in our 1940s attire, and we played some Glenn Miller, and it was an amazing experience. And from that point, from 2009 to where I've gotten more involved, from being a guardian to being a tour guide to an assistant bus captain to whatever needs to be done here in the DC area, this is a sentiment that I hear often, and especially from our Vietnam veterans, I thought nobody cared, but they do. And that's what you showed me. That's what a day of honor flight, that really sums it up. And one of my mom's favorite stories was a veteran that he got to dance to In the Mood. And he said, "Lady, that was my favorite song. You've made my day." And he said, "This is the best day of my life." And then he went, "Oh, wait, except for the day I got married." So you just know he heard his wife's voice in there. There is, and I would say that the impact of each group of veterans that we have is a little different. You know, our World War II veterans, they came home, they were victorious, they served their country, they come home, they went back to work with their families. The Korean War was so close on the end of World War II that, they call it the Forgotten War. And the Korean veterans were just so appreciative to even be remembered. And then we've got our Vietnam veterans. My dad was a Vietnam veteran, so I heard some of the stories of, they were spit on and called baby killers and had to take their uniform off before they could come home. And the different reactions that we get from our veterans is amazing. And there is a lot of healing and closure. I heard a veteran that said, "I've been carrying around a load of bricks, and today I left them at the wall." And it means something different to every veteran. And even those of you who have, been stationed in the DC area, have visited here, there's something different about doing this event with fellow veterans, even if you don't know them. You all share a common experience of raising your hand when you did for your country. And just the camaraderie and the support that you get. There's very few things really anymore that unite us. And I think one of the things that the Vietnam veterans made clear with Desert Storm, Desert Shield is that you cannot support the war and still support the soldier. And I do believe it was the Vietnam veterans who made it a point to say that no soldier is going to come home and not feel welcomed. And they were kind of the ones that started at BWI with welcoming the Desert Storm, Desert Shield veterans home. And it drives a big point home to them now, 50 years later. But this country does say thank you. And, family will tell us stories that if they're a guardian or accompanying their veteran on the trip, that they will start telling stories and they'll say, "Dad or Mom, I've never heard that story before." And so there's something that just allows them to feel like it's okay to talk about what they did and to know that their country, after all this time, finally does appreciate them. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. So we've got everything here from a veteran, looking for a name on the wall and taking that moment there. We've got some Korean veterans at the Korean Memorial, and very regularly there are folks from the Korean Embassy and the Korean military that will be there to greet these veterans. And if there is ever a Korean family or a Korean American family that sees a Korean veteran, it's amazing. Their thanks to our American soldiers is still there. It hasn't been forgotten. And they also, the bottom picture is the welcome home. And most of them don't know about this welcome home. And I got to experience my first welcome home with the Buffalo Niagara honor flight in April. I happened to be up there. I'm a clogger, so it's a cross between river dance and tap dance. And there was a big workshop up there. So I stayed an extra day to see their welcome home. And I've seen videos, I've heard about it. It blew me away. So these are all just ways, some moments in time that's captured on a video or on these photos here. And another veteran told me one day that he shook so many hands that day that he felt like he won the war all by himself. And when he said it, his face just lit up. And I did find it interesting when I started volunteering, they were World War II veterans. And I would ask the veteran, whose idea was it? How did you decide to go on an honor flight? And for the first couple of years, my wife made me do it. My daughter signed me up. My son said I should do it. But eventually the veterans started talking to other veterans. And the answer became Bob down at the American Legion, or Bill from Beer on the Pier, or John from church took an honor flight and said it was something that I had to sign up for. So to me, there's nothing better than a veteran telling another veteran what a great experience that they had. So a little bit of history. I don't know if you're familiar with the history of honor flight. Back in 2005, there was a gentleman named Earl Morse who lived in Ohio. He was a physician's assistant, had been in the Air Force, and he worked at a VA hospital. And this was during the time that the World War II memorial was being built. So being at the VA hospital, a lot of his patients were World War II veterans, and he started asking them, hey, when the memorial is built, are you going to go see your memorial, the memorial built in your honor? And pretty much all of them said, I'd love to, but I have no way to get there. It's too far. I can't get there. Well, Earl Morse was a private pilot. So the more he thought about this, the more he realized that these veterans needed to see the World War II memorial. You know, it came pretty late in their life and they needed to see it. So he reached out to some fellow pilots and got about 8 to 10 planes and brought 12 veterans. They flew into Manassas Airport and did what he called an honor flight and was able to bring veterans to DC to see the World War II memorial. And the media got a hold of it, did some interviews. More people thought about, hey, this is great. When he got back, more veterans wanted to sign up for it. And there was a gentleman from North Carolina, Jeff Miller, who saw this idea and called Earl and said, hey, this is an amazing idea. I want to take it one step forward. I want to raise money to charter an airplane full of World War II veterans to bring to Washington, D.C. And I think Jeff bit off a little more than he first could chew and realized that chartering a commercial airplane is quite expensive. But through talking with Earl, he succeeded, and they did. And then they continued the conversation and realized that we need to let more people copy what we're doing. And that's when the Honor Flight Network was formed. So it's been 21 years since Earl took the very first flight of 12 veterans. And next year will be the 20th anniversary of the Honor Flight Network, which is where we have them all over the nation. And by doing the commercial flight, it was able to bring more veterans at a time. And for example, Honor Flight Chicago is one of the ones that I really got involved with because, as it says, a race against time, right? We have our World War II veterans. And what Honor Flight Chicago was finding is their wait list was so long, the veterans were dying faster than they could get them here. Honor Flight Chicago is one of those unique ones. Every veteran has a guardian or a buddy for a day. So it can be a stranger that signs up. Some of them can be family members, a son, a daughter, a community person. And what Honor Flight Chicago did was like, hey, we can get more people on the airplane if we can get more guardians or people in the DC area that can be the buddy for the veteran for the day. So they're very unique. So any of you guys that are in the DC area, I'd love to get you signed up to be a guardian for Honor Flight Chicago as you get to spend the day. We have honored over 330,000 veterans that was our stats from the end of last year. We have close to 134 active hubs, and we take about 22,000 veterans a year. And another number that's very important that I want to share with all of you is it takes about 50,000 volunteers to make all of this happen. So of course we have a priority, and it's been kind of fun this year as I've been out at the World War II Memorial or greeting veterans. Almost every flight has had a World War II veteran, and they're like 100 to 105 years old. And it's so fun because the hubs are like, where have you been? We've been looking for you. And so World War II veterans to head of the list, Korean veterans, Vietnam veterans, and starting, I'll talk a little bit about this in a few minutes, but starting next year, it'll be post-Vietnam and Desert Storm. We also have what we call the TLC, so our terminally ill veterans that are moved to the head of the line, and we either get them from their hometown honor flight, connect them with one that's coming in sooner. And then we also have a program called the Lone Eagle Flight. So even though we have about 135 hubs, we do still have holes where we don't have honor flights. And what the Lone Eagle program does is it brings all of those veterans, they fly them into Baltimore from wherever they're from, and they get together at the hotel and have a dinner, and then they are on their own honor flight with veterans from wherever in the country that we have a hole. For example, Myrtle Beach, parts of Northern California. We don't have a hub in Wyoming. We've got 2 forming in Idaho this year. They'll be taking their inaugural trips. So and also Mississippi. We've got our first hub in Mississippi and Hawaii. So we've had one in Alaska. That's a 5-day trip. That's a lot of manpower, money, and volunteers. And that's where we need those 50,000 volunteers. Let me tell you a little bit about an honor flight day. Most of the trips are one day. If roughly, if they're say east of the Mississippi River, that's a rough. They come in the morning and they fly back in the evening. West of that, they usually spend a night because they're spending so much time flying in, like a lot of our Texas groups, obviously West Coast. And then we also have some groups that come in from the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. So they come by bus. Southwest Virginia comes by bus, Pittsburgh. Those are all day trips. Actually, Southwest Virginia spends the night, as does Twin Tiers, their bus trips. But usually there's a send-off at the airport. So you've got some family, some friends, some people there just to wish them off. And then they get to DC, and what they don't know is there's usually what we call our DC ground crew at the airports that are there to welcome them in. And it's quite amazing. I was just at Dulles Airport 2 Saturdays ago when there was the group from Stars and Stripes from Milwaukee that came in, and there was probably 200 to 300 people at the airport waiting for them when they arrived at Dulles Airport. And we call it here in this area the honor flight allergy. Especially when the veterans start to tear up. Man, as soon as I see a veteran tear up, I have lost it. I'm right there with them. Then they visit the memorials, including World War II, Korea, Vietnam memorials, as well as most of them go to Arlington Cemetery to see the changing of the guard. And then when they get back on the airplane or at dinner, if they're spending the night, at some point they get mail call. And this is a surprise to them as they are given a package of letters that's from their friends, family, politicians, school children, just members of the community, scouting groups, and each veteran receives a large envelope full of well wishes from their family and friends. And I would imagine that all of you, having been in the military, remember how important it was to receive a letter from home. My dad was CEO of the USS McCandless, and he sent home familygrams. And one of the young men that was on his ship, his mom saved them all. And so at some point he got them back and scanned them, and he shared them with me. And what I really loved is at the bottom, my dad always signed off, "Keep those cards and letters coming." That means a lot to our sailors to get them. And again, talk about the honor flight allergy. They are not expecting it, and it's amazing. And then when they get home, I touched on this a little bit, is the welcome home. I'm getting goosebumps just telling you about it. And Great Lakes will have the sailors come out. There's bands playing. There's just members of the community that make signs. And sometimes they'll have a bagpiper. And it truly blows you away. And it really restores your faith in humanity. We are more alike than we're not. And I'm just really glad that honor flight is one of those things that can unite us and we can see. And feel free to, if you guys have any questions, wave your hand. I love to talk, so I can get carried away. And again, this is just talking about the emotional surprise of the mail call. And this is a photo of one they usually get it on the airplane on the way home. And I was out with a group from Kansas City many years ago, and there was a delay, and they ended up doing the mail call at the gate of the airport. So I got to see what it meant to the veterans. And if you can see the one that this gentleman is holding up, it's probably from a young child. It's got the thank you, and then they've written a letter, or when they draw the photos, the veterans just love that. And this gives you a brief glimpse. Look at that. Look at all those people. Isn't that amazing? And this is Space Coast. So I know we had this was out of Melbourne. I know we have some Florida people. Surprisingly, we don't have an honor flight in Pensacola. I thought we were pretty well covered in the Florida area. I believe they are working on getting one formed there. But again, especially for our Vietnam veterans, they never got a welcome home. And this is just unbelievable. When they land, And especially you get somebody, you get some of the veterans who've taken an honor flight, and this homecoming means so much to them that they will come out as well. Talked about the veteran stories and just being able to capture what they're feeling. And, you know, when they get to the wall out with Honor Flight Chicago, I think it was in April, and there was a Vietnam veteran with she was a local guardian, pretty young lady, and the veteran said to her, I'm not ready. And she said, okay. And they just sat on a park bench that was overlooking the wall, and they talked, and he watched the people, and about 30 minutes into it, he said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to walk by. And it's different from every veteran, and being there to witness it is pretty amazing. And it's also, you know, families, you know, sometimes veterans don't talk about their service, and it gives them the okay to talk about it. And it also opens the door for family members to be able to talk about it. And, you know, the way a lot of our hubs are formed is that a guardian went to where their parent was and accompanied them on their trip. And then they found that where they live, there wasn't a hub, or they've moved somewhere else. And it really is, once it's experienced, it really gets in your blood. So I explained a little bit about a guardian. We call them guardians. They're buddies for the day. Just kind of somebody there to walk through the day with them. We get some active duty military that come out and join up with some of the veterans here, and they love it. The veterans that are on their honor flight will tell the active duty once they talk, hey, I could never do what you're doing. And then that veteran will share stories with the active duty service member, and that person will say, man, I couldn't do what you did. So there's a little bit of building of that bridge of being able to share what it was like then versus what it's like now. So we love to have that. Guardians do pay their own way. That way, that helps offset the cost of bringing the veterans. So for example, if you fly in from California, your guardian fee is going to be a little more because you got hotel rooms. So it's between $400 and $600. I know Honor Flight Chicago, because they recruit so many from the DC area, there isn't a fee, and it just depends. And the person who is the guardian can fundraise for their to have their costs covered. There are lots of hub volunteers. Our hub is what we call our kind of like our little, each honor flight from a different area. And it requires a lot of volunteer work to get these things done. So you talk about, you have to charter an airplane, you have to recruit the veterans, you want to get their medical history to make sure they're okay. You're going to recruit people to come to the homecoming. You've got mail call. You need to rent buses. There's a lot of moving pieces, and our volunteers are truly the backbone of our honor flight. And so here's some of our volunteers. It is kind of funny, especially the guardian that's asleep. It's always been my favorite. I talk some, if you know me and you know me well, there's two things we're going to talk about: dancing and honor flight. And I've recruited a bunch of my fellow dancers to be guardians. And this was back when we saw a lot of World War II veterans. And the one gal is like ball of energy. And I look back, she's sitting behind me, and truly she's like, and her World War II veteran is like, I'm ready. I'm good to go. It's definitely exhausting. There is a bond that's built, and these are some of our amazing volunteers. So one of the reasons why I'm talking to you today is I would love your help in spreading the word about Honor Flight. I'm not sure if any of you are eligible to take your Honor Flight, if we have any Vietnam veterans that have joined us today. So if so, thank you for your service, and please sign up for your Honor Flight. If you are a younger veteran, although probably starting next year, you will all qualify as post-Vietnam. But there's ways that I would love for your help. As I said, spread the word is the first thing. It's always shocking when there are people who don't know about Honor Flight. I don't understand that myself. It is fun with my mom and I grew up in Virginia Beach, so we used to go down there a lot. And she loved the commissary at Little Creek. So even though there was Fort Belvoir, we had to go to the Navy because to her the Navy base was better. Or even, I take it back, even here at Fort Belvoir or Fort Myer, right? We are in the commissary and we're doing our shopping. And of course, everybody's got their ball caps on, Vietnam veteran, whatever. And my mom is like, Theresa, come here, give them a card, tell them about Honor Flight. So we do this for about 4 aisles. And I'm like, Mom, everybody in here can probably go on an Honor Flight. We haven't gotten our shopping done. But she was an amazing ambassador. So spreading the word. Is there an age limit to be a guardian? That's from David in Florida. Technically, no, but there's a lot of work. So you need to be fit enough to be able to push a wheelchair if needed. You're literally going to be spending about 16 hours, and you need to be there to help with the veteran that you have. So technically, there is not an age limit, but you just need to be able to be in good enough shape to help the veteran. And if you're not really sure if you are or not, there's many other ways that you can help. You can be at the airport for homecoming. You can help organize mail call. You can, support money-wise by helping, with the cost of other guardians. Donate, fundraise if you have a connection, or like, hey, let me organize a golf tournament or whatever. Those are different ways that you can get involved, and would love your help. And both Kevin and Link have my contact information. Should have put it on the slide. Feel free, to reach out to me, and I can tell you where your local hub is and who to contact, and we can go from there. Waitlists. So we do have quite a long wait list for veterans. Even though we're flying about 25,000 veterans a year, there are still several hubs with wait lists. We're also trying to reach out to underserved populations. Sometimes if you don't see somebody that looks like you, you're going to be like, I am not going. We had our second trip, we had PenFed Credit Union sponsored a trip from Puerto Rico. And we did a Juneteenth flight a couple years ago out of Atlanta. So we're trying to do just a really good job of making sure that every veteran goes on an honor flight. And you do get the veteran that says, I was stateside, I only drove a truck, or I did this, I let somebody else go. Every veteran deserves to go. It doesn't matter what you did. You raised your hand and you swore the oath to protect the country, and you did what your country asked of you. And the veterans, some of them are reticent to go, but once they are on that trip, they understand what it meant and that they were glad they came. Talked about the geographic gaps. Louisiana, we have one in Baton Rouge, but not upper. I think Mississippi, we've got the Gulfport area, and we don't have one in Montana. Arkansas, I don't think we have one. And I know there was like a gap in Northern California, like above San Francisco. So if you know people who would love to volunteer in those areas, or can connect us with a company or somebody in that community that could help, we would love that. So if you are a veteran that needs to go on their honor flight, we've got a QR code for that. If you want to volunteer, if you're in the DC area, this is the one for the DC area. Yeah, so would totally love to have you guys go. But October is the dedication of the Desert Storm Desert Shield Memorial. And now that memorial is going to be open, we're going to start in 2027 by expanding the honor flight eligibility from post-Vietnam through, I think it's July of 1991. I have to look at the dates exactly. And it will go in order. So our Vietnam veterans will still go before Desert Storm. We have different hubs all over the country, and they have different wait lists. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a certain honor flight will start flying Desert Storm veterans right away, because we want to get our senior veterans here first. A story that I learned last year, we got last October, Jeff Miller and Earl Morse, the founders of Honor Flight, were in town, and we were invited with them to see a preview of the Desert Storm Desert Shield Memorial. So we got to walk around. And that's when I learned the connection of Honor Flight to that memorial. The Scott Stump, who is behind this Desert Storm Desert Shield Memorial, was a guardian on an honor flight out of North Carolina, I think with Jeff Miller's group. And he saw how much visiting the memorials meant to the veterans, and realized that there was no plans for a Desert Storm Desert Shield Memorial. And because of that trip, he decided that they needed to have a Desert Storm Desert Shield Memorial. And Jeff Miller, because of his contacts in Congress and just being one of the co-founders of Honor Flight, was able to point him in the direction of how to get the ball rolling. So it's very near and dear to my heart that it was Honor Flight that was behind the Desert Storm, Desert Shield Memorial. And I just love how we started with World War II veterans, and we've moving to Desert Storm, Desert Shield, but there is that connection. And so, just as a reminder that, this is a free trip to the veteran. It doesn't cost them anything, because we want them to know that our gratitude to them is priceless. And I want to thank all of you for allowing me this time to talk. And I'm happy to answer any questions, send you any information that you might need or want about Honor Flight.
Well, Theresa, thank you very much. That was a great briefing, and you and your team have done a tremendous job over the last 20 years making Honor Flight happen. I had a couple questions, and we can open it to others. I was going to ask. I've heard that there's been some, like, from Great River. I'm from Quincy, Illinois, so the Great River Honor Flight has had a couple of, like, all women groups. But I was going to ask, have you had a Native American group, like, from reservations or whatever, bringing them to the town?
We had one from Bay Area in San Francisco. There's been talk of doing one from Alaska. And I feel like, but I will look into that. I feel like there's been another one.
Have NFL teams or Major League Baseball teams or universities or other groups kind of sponsored a, Chicago Bears Honor Flight, or a St. Louis Cardinals, or whatever team, Dallas Cowboys, etc. Have they done that before?
Stars and Stripes, which is out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, has an amazing relationship with their sports teams. And the one that just came in 2 weeks ago, they call it their Flight of Champions. And they literally charter 3 flights. One of them is the Bucks flight, one of them's a Brewers flight, and one's a Packers flight. They get some alumni players that come. I know the Buffalo Niagara Honor Flight has a really good relationship with the Buffalo Bills. And they usually will get either some head office folks come in. Sometimes they get players, because they do reach out, whenever they need a veteran for something, they will usually reach out to an Honor Flight. But yes, and I don't know so much about how many universities. I know with the one that came in here, they had the George Mason University alumni group was organized to come and greet them. I know that I believe it's Syracuse works with, I think it's George Washington University that has a veterans group that they work with. So different ones do different things. And you talked about different flights. In April from Arizona, they had an all-female flight, and it was sponsored by the DAR, and they were all DAR members as well.
Really? Outstanding. Hey, I'm gonna have one more question. Then anybody else wants to ask Theresa a question? Last year I got to be part of the Oshkosh flight for the big air show, and that was kind of a special yellow ribbon honor flight. And so, do you have others that are like that sort of Oshkosh event?
Not per se. I'm going to Oshkosh this year. Super home on Friday. Not flying into a location that there's another event going on. I mean, there's not a whole lot of places other than air shows that have an event at the airport. I know the Yellow Ribbon Honor Flight, they were kind of one of the first ones that did all Vietnam. And before I was like really involved, like just as a dancer, entertaining the veterans on their way home, there was some, I think, really bad weather. And I didn't know Oshkosh doesn't have lights. And so, like, they had a window that if they didn't get out of DCA at a certain time, they were going to be diverted to like Appleton or something. We did, Fort Wayne, Indiana did an all Purple Heart Honor Flight. And I got an email that I think it's Austin. There's another one that's doing, they were all medical of some sort. One of the things I do want to mention about these special flights, they can get tricky because you have a wait list. And now you're doing a special flight of whatever, all women. Obviously, you take the women that are on your wait list, but now you're recruiting. And so you've got people jumping the head of the line, and that can get tricky. On the flip side, it garners, as you guys know, it garners a ton of publicity. So if it brings in more money and you can bring in more veterans, it can be tricky.
Yeah, that's a good point. Perhaps we can have a MOAA on our flight, and then we can have MOAA recruit all the officers that are part of honor flight and make sure they're signed up for their for their MOAA membership?
I think that would be amazing. I mean, we could do it, we could do a Lone Eagle flight where it's like all MOAA members, but I'm imagining that most of you probably live in an area where there is an honor flight. But having MOAA as a sponsor of however we want to figure out a way to talk about it, I think would be amazing.
Wondered if you would do or willing to or have done presentations to local chapters of MOAA?
I'm happy to. As you can tell, I'm
Okay.
not shy. So I would love to. I've only done a couple of these. So again, I would appreciate your feedback if it was too long or whatever. Happy for your feedback on that. But yes, if there's a local MOAA chapter, we could do it via Zoom. Always happy to go visit if if needed. Definitely. I will look into that and I will get that information to Link or Kevin and they can forward it to you.
A great presentation. Thank you, Theresa. You mentioned it's different for every veteran. Can you further expand on that a bit?
I think it's different in their reaction. I have not met a veteran who was disappointed that they came or didn't have a good time. You get a lot of them that have reservations at the beginning of the day, but by the end of the day will tell you that it was the best day of their life. And some are quieter and it takes them longer to start to open up. Some immediately when they step off the airplane at one of our DC airports and see the welcome will wear their emotions on the sleeve. I think it's just, and each of the veterans are different in what they experienced. You've got the veteran that was in country and saw their 3 buddies die and are looking for their names on the wall. It's going to be different to them, but no less meaningful than a veteran that maybe was not in country. They learn that the value of what they did played a role in what everybody else did. I think it allows them to see that even though they weren't in country, that their service mattered too. I've been a guardian to veterans, and you still make the phone calls and what's really great about is still letter writing or card writing, and you hear that from a lot of veterans. And even if it's a family member, it could be that veteran met. It is so random. I mean, sometimes they are from the same town and they served together and didn't know it. Or even more fun is when there's multiple honor flights in town and they recognize each other's hats from, hey, I served there, and they start talking and they reconnect. Or it just allows the bond with the family member that was afraid to ask the question or didn't know how to. Their bond with that family member grows.
An absolutely incredible story, Theresa. Consider our chapter a lifelong partner with Honor Flight, and we will post this video on our homepage with a story that's out there in perpetuity. So for those that could not attend today, and for others that watch your homepage, it will certainly be there. We want to thank you for a magnificent presentation and all the service that you do. Just amazing. Just an incredible service to the American veteran. We appreciate you being here this afternoon.